Top of the morning, my fellow peasants. From my little tiny apartment here in Osaka, I'm back with some tinfoil hat crafting theory that this is by far my craziest. All the theories today, of all my nutty insanity, this is by far the juiciest and spiciest and also the darkest. Final Fantasy VII is no stranger to swimming and wading deep in the dark, but this what I'm about to disclose to you guys, this theory that I've been teasing for literally probably 5 months at this point, building up to this. This is wildness, but also the one that has the most story potential. Like the doors that this would blast open in the remake, if even a fraction of this is real, and that's the thing. Do I think this entire theory is going to be the case? I mean, maybe like 20%, less than 20% chance. Like Square Enix would really have had to go deep, but I do think tenets of it are possible, plausible, and what it opens up to, as I've teased many times before, is possibility of Cloud Strife in this remake, whether it will be in Rebirth or the one after that, becoming an active Dreamweaver, actually taking control of the Genova cells in his body and utilizing the abilities actively himself. Of course, there's only I was going to say there was only one other individual in the universe, Sephiroth, who did this, managed to usurp Genova's will, and in the process is able to use her gifts. But that's what this theory is, that there's actually a second one. And this second one is what I've been teasing has been hiding in the Nibelheim basement, in the mansion, in plain sight. He was there out in the open, but it eluded all of us. And the consequences of this theory being real are so far reaching. Anyway, let's dive straight into it, guys. So I've really got to go back to like 4 or 5 months ago when I really started thinking of the idea. And I think it was this third before recent trailer that did this. You know, when Hojo said your brothers and sisters are down there to Cloud. And of course, we don't know when Hojo was saying that, at what point in the story, or for what purpose. But it made me think, is it possible that Square Enix do a successful reunion? A successful one. Now the reunion is, of course, Genova re-merging with all of its genetic material. And what we know in the original is the reason why that didn't happen is because Sephiroth didn't want Genova's power levels to go over 9,000. If Genova was more powerful, then there's a chance he would remain a puppet. And that's, of course, why the failed clones really didn't play that big a role. You know, they flitted around and they were very creepy, but ultimately they just seppuku themselves into the northern crater. Um, and that was a means for Sephiroth to stay in control. But now, this new Sephiroth, Sephiroth number 4, that we've never seen before, the Edge of Creation one, who arguably this Sephiroth has potentially, like, this is a really interesting point. How old is this Sephiroth? Or at least like his soul. How long has it been around? You know, you could make one point of, well, maybe it was up until like Cloud became an old man, started dying, like after Advent Children. I think that's possible. You know, Cloud is Sephiroth's memory tether to existence, and potentially when Cloud was nearing death after his life lived in a traditional family unit with Tifa, raising Denzel and Marlene, that's how they kind of left it off. Maybe that's when Sephiroth panicked and realized it with all that so Terra Corrupt he needed to reopen the live stream and try to change events, change fate, change destiny for himself and for Cloud. You will die, but I won't have you die, and neither will I. I box that so hard. Um, but potentially that's not even the case. Because, of course, what we know is that all of the events in the live stream have potentially happened. You know, hence the Harbinger giving Nanaki the flash of him with his cubs in his canyons. That's 500 years in the future. If all of those events have happened, it's possible that Sephiroth's soul at this point is 500 years plus old. Thousands. Tens of thousands? There's really no way to know. But I definitely do get the sense that it potentially is that long because look at the manner of education Sephiroth. He's no longer like original, who he was trying to circumvent and break the wheel of the life stream of the planet's natural life cycle. That was his goal. That was his motive. This new education one, is pondering, looking up into all of space and time, the entire macrocosm, and he's come to learn that, oh yeah, the fate of even the entire universe is to march slowly to death. All lights will eventually go out, be consumed by black holes, giant black holes, be all that's left, and even they will eventually decay. And he wants to fight this. And that's the kind of like big picture craziness that you only really acquire if you've been around a long time. So that's really significant that this Sephiroth is potentially like leagues of power level and will levels above OG Sephiroth. And in that sense, I think it's possible that he would allow a full reunion, that he would not need to avoid Genova powering up so hard because his will is just too damn strong, even if she does reunion fully. So then that got me exploring possibility of that because a reunion would be all the failed clones. And when you go through that list, guys, of course we have the 12 from original. You know, the numerology went up to 13, so there were 12 failed clones, and there was Red 13. We've got, I think it's Cobalt 14 and Indigo 15, which are like mechanistic versions of Red, like clones of him. There were 14 and 15. We've of course got Zack and Cloud, so SL Project, Sephiroth clones. And then we've had all this new extensive writing in the compilation. We've had all of the clones named. We had a lot of that through The Kids Are Alright, Evan Townsend, Rufus's half brother. His mother, Annette Townsend, was the one who oversaw the Sephiroth clones and was the one who essentially was the guardian of them, the caretaker, if you will. And then we had other stories like Lilize, Glenn Reiner, these stories about reconnaissance units, specialized military units who went missing. And I did that whole theory. If you haven't seen it, check it out. That essentially Aerith is responsible for the death of tens of thousands of individuals. I mean, when I say responsible, of course, what I'm talking about is the wall paintings that she drew. You can't really say it's her fault. Of course, a little child being coerced into drawing paintings can't really be blamed. But I say blame because that's how the failed clones see it. That's where it's significant. Lilize, the failed clone, when she breaks out of her room and sees Aerith, she dives on the young girl and starts choking her, screaming, "You did this! You killed them!" Craziness. And there's an entire story about, yeah, Aerith was writing and obviously intuiting from the live stream in her paintings, and then people would these special units, which was a highly priced things, and on a much grander scale and size and scope than it was in original. That is why the neighborhood watch that we're seeing in the Rebirth remake, something that wasn't in original, that's why those exist. Marlin the neighborhood watch is created because Shinra were just actively kidnapping people from the slums in mass waves. And the guy, I think it was Getty Bark. No, it was Jack Klein, I think it might have been, who's trying to look for his friend, Glenn Reiner, Getty Bark. He starts really digging into the missing persons list, and it's kind of mind blowing just how many people, not only the specialized units, just individuals being kidnapped, anyone essentially who was injured and could be faked as being dead, were taken over by the SL program and turned into failed clones. But of course, for every one clone there's thousands who died in the process. It's heavy, man. It's really dark stuff. And it's also no clearer than the entire underground laboratory that we fell into. A brand new one beneath Sector 7. After the plate, we fall in, Barrett's down there, Wedge, we fight all of those mechanoids. Those were never there. That's how much infrastructure has been built into expanding the SL program. And what's causing that? What's causing that? Because, of course, the numerology goes all the way up to 49 now. There are 3 times and potentially more clones than there were in original. Who's going to have the motivation to do that? It's going to be Sephiroth. Sephiroth has such use for the failed clones. Now, not just to be able to like teleport around, but I believe to be positioning them as the things that essentially lay the groundwork for his schemes and his plans. And I do think none is bigger than Marco. I've said this many times, but we've all overlooked Marco. It's significant. I mean, he's the wild card. He's the ace in the hole. He's the trump card that we're yet to see the full results of. And I've said previously that I think Robbie McBeardington. Yeah, it could just be Glenn Lodbrok. Some people say it's Reeve Twertsy. I think that makes no sense. Glenn Lodbrok does. Somebody even said it's Yuffie's dad. I went through loads of theories on who that guy was. I really like potential that it's just Genova in its he form when it first came to Ukak, etc. It was in a male form. That's why if found her when she talks to Gas, it says he came disguised as our loved ones. And I think it's kind of necessary, whether or not Roby McBeardington is Genova, that I think Square Enix are going to separate into distinct personas Genova and Sephiroth because their goals are different. They're separate. They don't have the same end goals. It's a harmonious relationship up until it's not. And, it makes a lot of sense this being in Junon because that's the point where Genova is looking to get across the ocean. So her showing up in a defined form of her own makes a lot of sense. And of course, that's what this Roby Bington looks like. He looks like a failed clone. That's what it's supposed to be suggesting to us, be suggestive of. But of course, it's not like our typical failed clones. It's not sickly, ghoulish, and degenerated, and even the cloaks aren't so shaggy and raggedy. So it's either potentially Genova or it's a failed clone isn't so sick who has regenerated. And I went down the avenue of that. How could a failed clone regenerate? If indeed it is Marco, how could he be well again? Well, look no further than Cloud, really. Cloud, what we see with him, and as even written in the Ultimania, is that when he goes through his mental breakdowns, that's when he becomes more and more failed clone like. It's when Cloud goes through self doubt, it's when he starts icing out the rest of the crew or separating himself from them. It's that old theme of Cloud, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough to save anyone. And when he starts isolating himself like that, that's when we see him become more and more failed clone. That's even when, he starts begging Hojo, please give me a tattoo. Please, please. And that absolutely is a theme, I believe, and a connection, a correlation between how strong the Genova cells are on you and how isolated you are. Because, of course, isolation, we are social creatures, and it's proven scientifically even that when we are isolated, depression and even like illness, physiological illness, it causes sickness of the spirit, if you will. And I do think that's a big part of course, why Zack was largely immune. He has a strong persona, a strong passion for others, a strong sense of duty to others in protecting Cloud and getting back to Aerith is just to name a few. And so isolation and how potent the Genova cells are is a very strong thing to hold on to here. Because being that I am going to reveal to you is by far the darkest and most isolated, and therefore could be not only the first Sephiroth clone, the first S cell project, but the most powerful, and that Sephiroth has brought it into the game and is making it his wildcard. So I have teased that I think Marco and Veld Verdot, predecessor of Song, so the previous ex-leader of the Turk, this is all in Before Crisis, that they are one and the same. That's pretty crazy, as well as this secret thing that's been hiding in the mansion the entire time. So to begin this ascent of those three, I'll just quickly take the first. I mean, Marco. It is obviously no coincidence that a clone we never saw before with a numerology of 49, a number that high that we've never seen before, just happened to be in the care of Tifa, where Cloud should have been for months, sick, being in her presence, forming a connection with her, or at least understanding one. I mean, Tifa has an affection for Marco. He's not a bad guy and feels an instinct to throw herself in front of Marco when Cloud's about to bring down the axe. And there's no chance that's a coincidence. That is a plant, a bug put there by Sephiroth. And like I said before, I believe that's to fully understand what was ununderstandable to him, incomprehensible, because tragically, of course, Sephiroth has never had a loving relationship or one with kind of deep connection and care that exists between Tifa and Cloud, or certainly what at least what he grows into. And that's what was his undoing. The quality of love and compassion between those two, and that unconscious want to serve the other, sacrifice for the other. Um, it was just something that Sephiroth had no capacity to understand. And so while in the original he took on what was the perceived main threat, the flower girl, he totally neglected Tifa. And of course, in that was his undoing. No, he did try to manipulate the situation, but failed. It only brought them closer together. Tifa not only went into Cloud's memory dive and repaired and felt that want to try to restore Cloud and save him and assist him in finding himself again, but it also works the other way around. The old mania said that the reason why Tifa, when she fell in the live stream as well, the reason she did not get grossly poisoned like she should have was because Cloud unconsciously created a psychic bubble of protection around her, just completely unconsciously. And that level of power, that like it's that hidden power of love thing that eventually then backfired on the villain who cannot comprehend such equality. It's similar, I guess, to Harry Potter. You know, Harry's parents die for him, and then it backfires on Voldemort. I don't really like that analogy that much, but it fits. It fits. I think it's in my mind because a few days ago I went to Harry Potter World in Universal Studios, rode the ride, went up into Hogwarts Castle, bought a butterbeer. Also spent like 50 quid on a wand, which was dumb. And yeah, I think Marco's been planted to try to understand that, or try to even exploit that like urge that she gets. Like she will throw herself in front of Cloud to protect him. She wants to exploit that. And I think he knew that he had succeeded the moment he, of course, made Marco droning in the room. Cloud comes in, sees him, goes to kill him, and then Tifa threw himself in front of Marco, and bam, Sephiroth thought, good, it's worked. It's worked. I've got that. And now we've got to consider is what if Marco does return and he's not degenerated? And again, that even fits with why he would be degenerated, because again, if isolation is indeed the thing that exacerbates the degradation, and Marco is this clone who's been in Tifa's care, that nurturing care, that is unique to her, and now, of course, we've had a Kabbalistic world hop, the rebirth. We've got the crew's spirit bodies have transcended to a new plane of life stream, a new radium. I think in that process, it's highly possible that Marco has rejuvenated, and that's what we are seeing. And regardless of whether or not it's this guy at the airport, Junon Airport, I think that'd be really cool, and that we are going to see Marco again. Now I know some people, when I've said that before, refute that, like, dude, that can't be possible. We saw it was Marco who turned into the new Genova that we've never fought before. Nova Dreamweaver. And this word right here, Dreamweaver. Really cool. And I think Square Enix are going to rip a hole through our freaking minds with the dream weaving concept. Dream weaving simply being creating a illusion, an environmental illusion that is so real, so palpable that people inside of it cannot really distinguish that they are in it. Of course, we've seen that subtly at the moment with the arena that we fought Genova Dreamweaver in, where it's all like the tentees and the biomatter. The whole room transforms. And the crew are like, wow, wow. It's like, it's visceral, it's tangible, it's so real. And where did this Dreamweaving ability come from? Well, very quickly, people saying, oh yeah, because we killed Dreamweaver, Marco died, so he's dead, Pez. He ain't gonna come back. Like, it's irrelevant now. How people can say that he's irrelevant, especially when after that fight Sephiroth comes and we see that whole drawn out, like, theatrical moment, like that significant showing of Sephiroth collecting the body, climbing up the tower, then diving off, the slow-mo pan of falling. That was not all shown to us because Marco's insignificant and it was nothing. No, quite the opposite. They showed us that because of how significant Marco is. Now, why is he so significant? Obviously, there's loads of clones. Why would he go out of his way to extract the body of one of these clones when what we've seen is like some of the others just don't seem significant at all. I think we even seen the new trailer, right? All of them lined up, and I think the Condor just comes and fucks off with one of them, and they're just like, "Yee!" Why Marco in particular? Well, guys, it's because his body and his Genova cells can do something none of the other clones have. None of them. And that is an active ability to Dreamwave. So follow me here. No, because of course I've covered 49 in other contexts, like the numerology of it. 49 is the number of days in the Tibetan Book of the Dead that you spend in a purgatory, living out your life regrets, which is very succinct with how the live stream is. You see Jesse Biggs and Wedge in there. Living in purgatory, suffering, not able to dissolve in the live stream because they're trapped with their poor karmic baggage. 49, of course, being the 49 days of the Omer in the Kabbalistic Jewish calendar. It goes up to 49, and day 49 is Malkuth within Malkuth, which essentially means kingdom within kingdom, dimensionality within dimensionality, which is what we've now got here. Zack's End and Heir of 10, like the direct said, one is World of Livestream and World of Chaos. Dimensionality overlaps. It's also what 49 means. Woo! Oh goodness, we're just ascending. Strap your tinnies, guys. Here we go. So that's Marco out of the way, and why I think he's going to be back. And I started thinking about who is the base persona of him, though, because of course all the failed clones, like we saw with like Lilazay and Geddy Bark and all the other ones who were named in the compilation, there was a person, there was a life before that they became a failed clone. They were an individual. Who could the base of Marco be? So I got really thinking about that. And I really started exploring, well, where have the failed clones come from? Now, up until this point, we really only kind of thought that they were Nibelheim victims. Now, the ones who didn't die and were grossly injured were taken to the basement and turned into failed clones. And that is true. Which that right there means that any of the failed clones could be someone from Tifa and Cloud's hometown. And it's a small town, it's a small bumpkin village where, like most of them, everyone knows everyone. So any of those clones, including Marco, would be someone that Tifa and Cloud knows. Now, I think it would obviously suck ass if one of them ended up being like Cloud's mother or something. I think that'd be cliche, or Zangan. I think that would suck. But what if Marco is just, I'm going to say it, what if he's one of the Four Fiends? Those three boys that Tifa was friends with, they were called the Four Fiends. And they've only just added that detail recently, which means they're setting something up there, They're placing something there. What if it's one of the boys? And the reason why Tifa felt the need to protect and an instinct to help him, and oh no, he's not a bad guy, is because it's intuition of someone that she once knew. It's one of the Four Fiends. Oh, that would be wildness. Of course, a lot of the other failed clones, like I just said, is some of the reconnaissance units, some of the specialized troopers who were dropped in the wilderness. I think they got airdropped, and you'd be out in the wilderness for like 5 days or something, and you would get a bounty if you found a place that was rich and saturated in Mako in Livestream. So that Shinra could build a reactor there. You would also get a hefty bounty if you found any hint that led to the discovery of the Promised Land, which is, of course, the main motivation for why they're following Aerith's paintings in the first place. And just like the extensiveness that I've just described of the infrastructure built to facilitate a much bigger S-Cell program, we also see a much stronger culture baked into the Shinra military. Just similar to Stamp, there's a lot of indoctrination and propaganda, and one story centered heavily around how everyone who was anyone that worked in Shinra military wanted to be on this program, wanted to go for this bounty. It was huge. Everyone would tear off a left leg to try to get onto it. And indeed, there's a story about how one of the troopers poisons one of her own squad, and they're like a close-knit group of friends. She poisons, I think, like multiple of her fellow squad members, so that they get taken off the list, and gives her a better chance of being the one deployed on this mission. Huge. Literally poisoning your own mates to get onto this thing. So the significance of it cannot be understated. And course, nothing in this rehappening, this remake is occurring by coincidence. So all I can think is like, yeah, Aerith's wall paintings and the messages being sent subliminally, absolutely, I believe, are being sewn in by Sephiroth. Again, he has a tremendous amount of control over souls in the live stream, memory itself, life itself, the very will and heart and soul and voice of the planet is being corrupted. And by that nature, it's highly possible that young Aerith, the stuff that she was drawing, wasn't coming just from the live stream or like nice souls in the live stream. Nefarious ones, like it says in Maiden Who's travels the planet, ones twisted with spite and anger and hatred, who willingly aligned themselves with Genova and Sephiroth. Some of those messages that sent those individuals to those places could have been nefarious ones, all part of a ploy, again, just like Hojo having the instinct he has to serve my son. Serve my son. That's what we saw in OG when he's at the sister ray and he's siphoning off energy. My son wants it. He needs it. I can tell. I can feel it. Like what we've even seen is Sephiroth manipulating Hojo subliminally or directly, and we actually see that in remake. Hojo is pondering how he can set up a direct meeting with Sephiroth. What's that noise? Somebody with a gramophone, probably outside the pachinko slot arcade store. Oh, literally right near one. I'm kind of holding on. It looks a lot of fun, but I know if I start the pachinko slots, I'll lose all my money. I'll gamble it all away. So, man, I'm having such a good time out here. Definitely gonna look to do some vlogs and show you some of the travels out here. It's awesome. I love this country. It's amazing. Anyway, that's about everything that I needed to cover with Marco. So let's go on to the second ingredient. Why I think Verdot failed. Previous ex-leader of the Turks is also embroiled in this scheme. So, if anyone doesn't know, in Before Crisis, Verdot, he was exceptionally loyal. He's very conservative and loyal to Shinra and did everything President Shinra wanted. All of his nefarious, like no task was too dirty for Verdot to follow through on. And it led to some really dark, sinister stuff. So not only was Verdot the one who was there at the beginning of Avalanche and trying to crush them, the insurrectionists. He also formed many espionage duties that basically led up to the war in Wu Tai, including an entire incident of trying to storm because Avalanche had a really big HQ in Wu Tai, and basically created a whole scheme to blow it up. And it was actually Yuffie, young Yuffie, who she pickpockets the detonator from Who You Play As, Shotgun, the player Turk, pickpockets it. Yuffie accidentally presses it, killing a whole bunch of, I think they're called Ravens. I might be off on that. Were they Elf's Avalanche team? Like Elf and Fajito. Fajito was a I ain't gonna cover Fajito. He was a whole villain unto himself. Another crazy scientist type, basically trying to awaken like weapons, like Jade Weapon, which is what the player Turks fight at the end of it. But another really dark thing Verdot does is he accidentally destroys his hometown, killing, he believes, his own wife and daughter. So they live in calm, and I was going to say Square Enix. Square Enix are preparing long-range tactical missiles. Shinra are creating long-range missiles that they can send over to Wutai and annihilate it. And in one of the experiments, basically, it's set up that these missiles are going to destroy Calm. And Verdot catches a sniff of it. He tries to divert the missiles to like a different plotted coordinate away from the town. And then by like some crazy mad coincidence, it malfunctions and destroys the city anyway. Believing that his wife and daughter are killed, he just goes all into being a Turk. Like it becomes his whole life, his whole identity, and he does a lot of really dark stuff in that role. But what's discovered later on is no, Elf, his daughter, survived. Upon discovering she's alive, actually sides with her and tries to disappear. And Shinra basically puts him in jail, puts him up onto the execution, like death row. And the Turks, with their loyalty to him, break him out. And that's where we see the first split between Shinra and the Turks. He basically kicks Turks out of Shinra employ. And of course, in that vacuum, Ruthless Shinra steps in and starts laying the foundations of bringing the Turks' loyalty onto himself, so that he could undermine his father. And yeah, a whole story plays out, and there is a point where Shinra offers the Turks that they can come back on one condition: that Song shoots Vido. He has to shoot him, and he points the gun, bang, fade to black, and then we believe he's dead until a little sneaky cutscene at the end where it shows no, Song set that up, and they actually snuck him and Elf in the back of a truck to safety. So they're still alive. They're still in the story now. I would love to see them. But what's more significant and how this ties with him potentially being Marco and my secret mystery is it's exciting, dudes. Here we go. Here we go. Basically, the Nibelheim settlement program, so the program that is employing fake actors to come and pretend like there was never a fire. The fire that happened that burnt down the village never happened. Reconstruct the town. Exactly what they do with Calm. That's the thing. Calm was the first. Build it back up and pretend it was never destroyed by Shinra. And Fido does all the work behind that in setting up the Nibelheim settlement program. And in doing that, of course, there's a lot of evidence that needs destroying. There's a lot of work that needs to go into creating such an elaborate cover up. And him and you, player Turk, Shotgun, are sent to the mansion to destroy any incriminating evidence. Juicily, as you're playing a Shotgun, you're going through, and rather than just destroying it, Shotgun can't help but have a little snoop. She's a very inquisitive little Turk and discovers a lot of things she shouldn't. And she is having a snoop, and in that snooping, one of the things she discovers is about the proto-materia experiments, of which, of course, that is what Vincent is, the slot in his prosthetic arm that turns him into chaos. Vido was the first one to undergo that experiment. He has a prosthetic arm with a slot, and Player Shotgun makes that mental note, like, well, Vido has a prosthetic arm with a slot. We also learned that Elf also had that, and the experiment that was done on her and like trying to extract out Vido's trying to find a way to basically extract it to save his daughter, but in doing that, it like summons Zirconiad. Zirconiad, the big like thing you fight in Before Crisis. This is why I get really hazy on it, but what I know is significantly after Shotgun realizes that, she's walking across the basement again, meets up with Vido, and then they say, okay, let's go down into the basement now and go get rid of any evidence down there. So down they go. Down the spirally staircase, probably to fight a couple of yin and yangs doing their fucking creepy, like, head flopping thing. Wait, it's too long to do that. And they're going into the basement, and then all of a sudden they step through like the basement door, and they step into Sector 8 of Midgar. And they look around. They're like, what? How did we get over here? And they're massively confused about how they've just arrived here. And what is clear from watching the scene is that to them, in that moment, it was indistinguishable from reality. They did not know. The only thing that gives Vido the hint that, wait, this is the past, is that he sees the Sector 8 Avalanche insurgents and realizes this was the first mission I ever went on as leader of the Turks to try to crush Avalanche. And then you go and you have to recreate those steps. You fight some of. I think that's what the Ravens were at that point. I'm again confused. And then a voice after you destroy them says, that did not work. And then you switch again. And Shotgun goes, whoa, we've time traveled again. What the fuck? And then Vido's like, oh my god, we're here. And what you're seeing is Calm ablaze. They're suddenly transported back to the day where, yeah, Vido believed his wife and daughter died at his hands. Very dark. And everything is there in detail. You can smell the smoke, feel the flames, everything. And you're like, what is causing this? What is going on? And then the disembodied voice shows up in the form of Vido. And I think they call it like Shadow Vido, just like a dark one, like how like shadow characters in Persona look, kind of like different. Oh, I've got scary, malevolent eyes, like Hazel or some shit, and starts talking to them. And before I say what this thing was, let's just take those elements right there. Disguised itself as Vidot. So for one, I mean that's Genova's mimic ability, right? It can inhabit the forms of other people and maintain those forms and hold those forms. The other one is, of course, creating illusion. And what you discover, guys, and here it is, the thing that created that dream weave intentionally by itself, of its own volition, the missing failed clone that we've never seen, that if it is going to be a part of the reunion, and this thing that I'm about to drop is what I believe Sephiroth has brought back into the game and given it a tattoo and a higher purpose. And I think he's done it, and I think it's Marco, and I think he extracted it because of this creature's ability to dreamweave. And when I say creature, I should say person, because it showed up to us as a creature, just a boss, a meaningless boss, a throwaway boss, didn't mean much. And yet this was the thing that was the one that was toying with Vidot, and it could potentially still to this day be wearing his form. And it is none other. You ain't gonna believe it. You're gonna be like, what? That thing? That thing is what you're hyping on, Pez, as being the not only potentially the first ever Sephiroth clone, but the most powerful and one that is going to play a vital crux role in Sephiroth's plan. And it is Lost freaking number. This thing, Lost number. This weird purplish, reddish, ghoulishy thing. Yeah, you know it, guys. In the safe. Once you get the code, I don't know what it is, 4969217. Anyone off the top of their head? That thing. We even found in the Ultimania, they spoke to it. I think it got over here on the second screen. Like basically confirming that, yeah, Lost Number is a Sephiroth copy. Just one that wasn't given a number, just of course like Cloud. Cloud and Zack and Lost Number were the only ones not to get a number. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Yeah, Lost Number attacks you when you open the safe where the basement key is hidden. He's yet another victim of Hojo's Sephiroth copy experiment, but unlike the others, he's lost his number. He lacks one of the numbers shown in the other test subjects' tattoos. He is a dude. This was a person, guys, twisted into like this malformed and malignant a creature. And I even found some like cool Reddit like fan art of like Lost Number going through the process of being transformed. This is the darkest story today, and that I absolutely believe for a complete reunion, Lost Number has to be introduced. And the reason why I think Lost Number could have been the first is, yeah, by nature of him not being given a number, what if this was the first ever experiment and it was so crude, it was so rudimentary and so primitive of the SL program that they didn't even bother number it and they just locked it away in a safe. A person locked away in what had to be what? I don't know what the dimensions of that safe was. A 4x4 fucking tube of steel. Locked in there. Isolated. Alone. And like I said, when there's a correlation between isolation and the potency for which Sephiroth can twist and manipulate and metastasize in the body, what kind of power level would that be for Lost Number? Being that, because even the other failed clones, at least they had things like Annette Townsend, Evan Townsend, with his half brother. At least they had somebody like her who would check on them, care for them. Lilize, when she was turned into a failed clone, her sister was also in the military and locked Lilize in a room because she'd always try to go wandering off. And sometimes they would let the failed clones out to wander and they would follow them to see where they went. But no, up until the events of OG, they would just sort of wander aimlessly, not knowing where to find Sephiroth or Jenova. So those walks would go nowhere. But at least they had human contact. At least they saw some semblance of the outside world, and they had no caretakers or other failed clones to be around. Lost Number had none of it. Locked in a dark steel fucking cage in that twisted ass mansion by itself for God knows how long. And we all thought it was just a random throwaway boss, but yeah, before Crisis showed that from that that box, it was exerting its will. It mimicked Fido's body and was playing twisted mind games with them, sorry, by creating a dream weaving worlds of freaking illusion, guys. It was able to dream weave with its own intention. That's that's huge. That's so juicy. My God. And when I stumbled upon that, it immediately came to mind. I was like, lost number, something that never had a number. Okay, now Marco here with 49. What if Marco is indeed like veiled? And I say veiled not because it's actually veiled, but because that's what lost number created a visage of. It was something that he could mimic and create a form around. Of course, this is what we saw Genova do as well. When it was trapped in the northern crater by the Queen of the Cetra, Shiva, with the ice tornado, it had no other being or life form to mimic, to create a form of. And that's why, in theory, and it's just a theory, Genova has the feminine Shiva form with the blue skin, and it's always held that form ever since. So, is it not possible that a lost number could be the being that Sephiroth went and got out of the safe, bugged and planted in the care of Tifa, Marco? You know, a move that is on so many levels a 5D chess of epic proportions, because it would allow Sephiroth a means to drive a wedge and have an infiltrator, have an intimate insight into the crew and what they're doing, something he can sabotage them with. But now, if it's also the form of Vidal, all the Turks are going to know him. They're going to remember him. They're going to recognize his form. And I'll just say, quickly and significantly, is Vidal does still have an active role with the Turks. It's not like he went into hiding and never speaks to the Turk again. No, he actually quite the opposite. He plays a vital role. And why it could be him at Junon Harbour, even if it's not lost number Marco Vidal, but real Vidal, is because we never hear about him again until Dirge of Cerberus, where we learn that from the events of Before Crisis, when the Turks had to fight Jade Weapon, the Turks saved the world more than once. And the Turks realize that there's a bigger duty for them to live up to than just simple espionage, destabilizing nations, or playing like geopolitical assassins, essentially, at the behest of Rufus, but to actively assess, keep an eye out for, and report on any global threats. And that's where it's left off, that the Turks position themselves around the world and they get any information about any world ending threats, and they send it all to, can you guess? Yes, Fido. That's his role when he's in hiding. And Dirge of Cerberus also points it out to us, because Reeve Tuetsu, of course, forms the WRO, the World Regenesis Organization, gets a lot of his information from Fido. Another example of the Avalanche and Turk cooperation. We have seen at this point that they are far more than just enemies. Advent Children's no clearer than that. It was the Turks who went to the northern crater, found the threat of Kadash, Los, and Yuzu. They're the ones who go and obviously try to get the help of Cloud, and that's where we have that funny scene of Reno getting shut out of the healing center, like slams the door on him. And they're just like, Reno, you fucking idiot. They work together. And this is another story of that. So Vidal absolutely could sharpen the story, because what we're seeing now is planets waking up, planetary weapons waking up earlier. Maybe. I mean, we have seen obviously Tifa seeing them in what seems like the live stream. By the way, guys, just so you know, as I'm recording this, I've still not played the demo or seen the latest trailer. So honestly, if there's anything, I mean, I could be getting completely debunked on the spot right now, or quite the opposite. Something I'm saying is actually showing up. Doubtful, but I just need to make that clear. I am blind on the new stuff. But yeah, I'm just going to put this on the screen. Just, this is how they word it. I won't read all of it, but yeah. First encounter of Avalanche, Sector A, during the first episode, forged by lost number. When that proves ineffectual, lost number changes the illusion to that of Calm's destruction. He basically paralyzes Vidal, but is defeated by player Turk, and his illusion vanishes, freeing Vidal. So it's highly possible that, not only would Marco, if it's Marco Vidal, have a wedge between Tifa and Cloud, but would also have a wedge, an influence that it could exert Rufus and the Turks, because it's their ex-leader who still works with them. Sephiroth could play both sides with this one little sneaky ploy. Now, obviously, you got to see some more evidence of how this could be like viable. But just following him at that if Marco is lost number, given a new tattoo, and the reason why Sephiroth extracted it is because, yeah, in that isolation, lost number became so powerful. I mean, in fact, it's possible that now, up until this point in the story, Crisis Core has told us that Cloud is the last of the pure S cells. That's what makes him so significant. That's why it was actually a piece of Cloud cellular DNA that Genesis needed to fight against the degradation. Because Cloud's the only one with pure S cells. They tried it with Zack's, and it backfired because Zack is not pure. He had Mako injections before this point, and that's the same case for all clones. We don't know about Lost Number. We don't know if that's the case. Lost Number could be pure, and in that sense, dudes, that's why Cloud is so freaking powerful. That's why in Avalanche Advent Children, he's doing all that manic stuff he's doing, cutting through freaking buildings, and his power level is just absolutely bonkers, bananas. How cool would it be for them to set up a new villain being Marco, Lost Number, who is also a one with pure S cells, who also has an insane power level, but one based around Dreamweaving. And that's why Marco was the one who became Genova Dreamweaver, a version of Genova we've never had before. I think it was what? Genova Synth. What was it? Oh, I can't remember. Oh, Life and Death, that's it. And Doll. Life, Death, Synth, Doll. There was never a Genova Dreamweaver. Why did Marco become Genova Dreamweaver? When we know now that Lost Number was able to dreamweave actively worlds of illusion. So I thought, my goodness, anything else? Anything else to substantiate this trifecta of connection? And I was already pretty convinced at this point. The smoking gun was there, and I was ready to shoot the theory, but I dug a bit deeper, and I found that in Before Crisis, you have bonus missions that were actually inaccessible to the Western version that came out. I mean, largely the game was pretty poorly ported for the West, but in the Japanese versions, you can play what's called free mode. So it's similar to like Crisis Core missions. It's exclusive free mode. Rescue mode is the last mode of play, and if a player is defeated during the game's playthrough, they have two options. Basically, go on these new missions, and they're slight like deviations of the first mission. And the bonus mission of this mission, where you go and you discover and have this interaction with Lost Number, basically plays out as the following. Actually, I'll just leave it up on screen. The way they portray it is that Vido and Shotgun are chasing a shadow, and the whole mission is called In a Dream. And you make the shadow go on the ground. The shadow goes along the right wall. Move the candle to lead the shadow. If you touch the shadow, it will be a battle with the shadow. If you fight the shadow, the shadow, the shadow, the shadow. What did we hear in that trailer? Shadows of the Man.
Shadows of the Man, I believe he called them.
Shadows of the Man. Fucking reaching, man. But I was like, wah, brah, brah. And then you get to a treasure box at the end of it. If you come into a shadow, it won't be a battle, and it will explain about the treasure box. And to open it, you have to get a keyword, right? And the keyword of the shadow question and its answer, Junon Airport. Junon freaking Airport, guys. Where at this point I was already like, Roby McBeardman and Junon, Marco, I think there's a connection here, there's a hint here. Junon freaking Airport. So I was like, oh my god. That's wildness, wildness. Just a random other note, but I found this kind of interesting. In initial sketches, Kadaj was just being referred to as Lost Name. That's curious. But then this, guys, this was the final piece that just evaporated my noodle. So I'm looking at Lost Number, and I'm like, was there anything in the design here? I even looked into the battle mechanics of how it operates, like magic and attack, and you have to like switch between because one side is more orientated to the other, which I think is a cool aspect of Lost Number is that there's like a very strong physical component and magical component, which is a cool ingredient we kind of overlook. That Genova cells do exacerbate how potent magic is. That's why we see like Sephiroth able to was in that new trailer thing of the little mobile game. He eats that entire unit. It's like one Firaga. It's just like insanely powerful magic. Lost Number has that premise as well. But I was looking at the design and it's a weird design, right? Like two distinct colours. I think one's a reddish that I have in front of me, but a reddish hue, and there's others like a purplish bluish hue. Like, is there anything there? You didn't really find anything. And then I went looking at old sketches of Marco, and I came across his concept art, guys. This was the concept art of the freaking Marco. What? Why? What? Again, I don't have it in front of me, but I can't say the exact colours. But he had these two streamers coming off of him. One was like reddish and something, and one was like purplish and blue. Why? What? Oh my god! Oh, if anyone has a better explanation why Marco in his sketches, a lost number, failed clone, would have two different coloured streamers coming off of him. Why? What's that in relation to? What's the purpose of that? I mean, for a start, it shows the significant difference of Marco. Oh, but it ties up with Lost Numbers colouring. And there it is, guys. There's the theory. That I don't need to go over it again. I'm nearly an hour into this video. Wild. Wow, that would be so cool. This would open the doors to such a dope villain, like 10 times better than Roche, or such a cool new extension of story that it could tether to. Then say, I don't know, Leslie, Carl, and frickin' sewers. Like, Marco either being someone that Tifa knows or being the Doe leader of the Turks. All of them being Lost Number, a super, super powerful by the nature of the extent of its isolation that could Dreamweave and did Dreamweave and mimicked Verdot physically. Regardless of whether this theory is true, Lost Number, based on Before Crisis, is one of the only beings beside Sephiroth that we've seen that could control the abilities of Genova. And I just think it would be amazing if it was Marco and that, yeah, he's regenerated. Him and Tifa have like an interaction. Obviously, she will feel some kind of loyalty and affinity to him, and that could really do some like mad levels of damage. And I think would also be what would give Cloud the first like hints, or us the hints that Cloud could become a Dreamweaver. This is a power available to him. And indeed, we also, I believe, based on this theory, that Marco is the clone that had the higher saturation and dream weaving abilities. That's what would be such a succinct, would it not, explanation as to why Sephiroth did that whole theatrical of extracting him, and even why that VR sequence happened. Because what did we see? We saw them in Midgar, we saw Tifa getting stabbed, we saw Barrett dead, we saw the meteor coming down, and before we saw Sephiroth, we saw a clone up there, and it flashed. And what we know, based on what Palmer said, when he comes into the meeting, he said, I just saw Sephiroth, I just saw Sephiroth. That was a hint that because we later see Marco in the room, that it was Marco who walked the corridors at that point. It was Marco who was close to the VR simulation room when that happened. So it was Marco, by my theory, lost freaking number that caused that VR trip out, that malfunction. That showed it, and that showed Tifa dying. Again, the hint of the twist. The twist of the knife, that is, that Sephiroth is utilizing and weaponizing this specific, never known before. I know some of you probably did know, but did you also know about his involvement in Before Crisis? Lost Number was there, man. And that it is the ace in the hole, specifically designed to not only create worlds of illusion, and just on that alone, like, if this is the case, that this being If that is indeed him at the Julon airport and he turns, he's got that malicious smile, that lost number Marco is going to be ghosting through the whole game, looking to set up scenarios and events. And what we need to question is if, again, it can create worlds of illusion indistinguishable from reality, we will have to question at all times, are we in something real right now? Is this fate? And the premise that this could be what begins the arc of Cloud learning the dream weaving ability, I think is also substantiated by, when we were in the remake, after the first bombing mission, and like Cloud staggering through the town and he's having a trip out and he starts overlaying Nibelheim onto Midgar. And it's not strong, it's not like 5D and just solidly corporeal, but there's flashes of Nibelheim overlaying. And yes, of course, we could say, oh, that's just happening in Cloud's head. But what if there's more than that? What if that's the beginnings of Cloud projecting, dreamweaving out? And I think it's even more likely the fact that, the date scene outside the house, when you have the Aerith one, what's the first thing that is said between Cloud and Aerith? He's looking around and he can see the life stream floating up there, and he's looking about and it looks all real. And he says, "Is this? Is this?" Question mark. Implying like, "Is this real?" And Aerith just looks at him and says, "I don't know. You tell me. You tell me." AK, it's not me doing this. I'm not the one doing this. You tell me. That could be another, I feel like subtle little moment where he was dream weaving. The exact same thing that we saw that, every time somebody touched Cloud, that's how they saw the whispers. What we saw at the bridge scene where Cloud seeing Sephiroth and everyone's like, yo, Cloud, what the fuck's up? And then Tifa touches, and they all recoil in horror because suddenly Sephiroth goes from being just something he can see to now they can all see. All hints, my friends. It's getting trippy. It's getting real nutty, and I am so here for it. But there we go, guys. That's the whole theory. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Did that titillate you? Also, sorry if this audio or the visual of it has been really poor. I'm just doing it off my new laptop, trying it out while I'm here. I couldn't be bothered to set up all of my stuff. I'm off to Kyoto tomorrow, so this may look and sound really bad. I don't know. Let me know about that and what you think about this theory as a whole. And then also, most importantly, are your anxiously peppered for the rebirth coming in a few weeks? Oh, that felt so good. That felt so good to put the tinfoil back on. I've been massively absent of it. Uh, really cool, guys. I will be streaming the Rebirth potentially a week or two after its release. It's actually coming out like literally the week my twin sister's getting married, and we've got a lot of wedding celebrations in Bali to do. But no, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It gives you guys all time to catch up and get through your playthroughs without spoiling it watching my live stream. But yeah, I would absolutely love for you guys to come along for that journey. So if you're not already subscribed, hit that bell button. Do it, because one thing I can guarantee is I have so many headcanons, brain cannons, hopes, and wants, theories for this next part of the rebirth that I'm just gonna lose my goddamn mind from like start to end of this playthrough. I'm so damn excited for this, and yeah, I hope you guys are too. But peace out till the next video. Goodbye.